What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back. There we go. Backwards is much better. Why do I got on all this Ignition gear? Because they are sponsoring your boy Ignition. Saw the process, saw my grind, saw my hustle, and they wanted to sponsor all my content. Sent me a ton of gear. Gonna be streaming, maybe on YouTube, maybe on Twitch, a lot of Ignition stuff. Absolutely love their platform. Their zone poker is so cool. Check it out if you guys haven't. And if you guys support me, support Ignition. But without holding you guys too long, we have an insane 5, 10, 25 session back in New York City. I get into some of the craziest pots I've ever been in, bluff with some of the craziest hands I've ever bluffed. You guys do not want to miss. Watch all the way through the end. Lots and lots and lots of hands. Let's get right into them. All right, welcome back. Another vlog every Wednesday like clockwork. I think I haven't missed a vlog in like over a year, which is pretty fucking insane. Hopefully you guys appreciate the grind. We started off in classic fashion, the good all suited connectors. Don't get anything, and then we don't even get a break. We get right into our favorite hand, Ace King. Just an absolute running joke on the channel. Maybe we can start off the session with a win with our patented hand. And we see some action right away. There's a straddle to 25 and 2 calls, and now the button decides to bump this bad boy up to $150. Looks like we're going to get thrown right into the mix right away in the small blind, coming in for that cold 3-bet. You don't really see a 3-bet this massive. $425 is what I decided on. Quickly folds back to the button. Not really sure what I want here. Always start these sessions about 2K deep. Guess we could get it in for, I guess it's like 200 big blinds. Actually, never mind, less because of the straddle. So we are a little bit less than 100 big blinds. Guess we could get it in. But he makes the call, so we're going heads up right away to an absolutely massive flop. And oh my goodness, we whiff yet again. How do we never hit an ace or a king? Our life can never be easy. The flop comes 6 deuce 5 rainbow. Oh my goodness. If he's got some kind of overpair, I just don't see a way that he folds. Probably going to lose quite a bit of money, but I decide we've got a c-bet here. I decide to c-bet here somewhere in the range of like 1/3, 1/4. Not sure exactly how much is in the pot right now. It's obviously on the screen, but I bet $275, obviously praying that we just take it down. But my opponent puts in the call. Oh god, are we going to have to buckle in and triple barrel bluff on our first hand here? How much am I going to hate Ace King after this hand? Let's just see what the turn brings. The turn comes the 7 of diamonds. Like I said, I started with about 2,000. Think I have about 1,200, 1,300. There's about that in the pot. What would I do here if I had aces or kings? How do I continue to tell the story? I think about it, count my chips, and I say, you know what? Let's put the pressure on my opponent with whatever hand he's got here. I decide to go all in. I'm all in with ace high on my very first hand. This will definitely start the session off in an interesting way, either up quite a bit of money, taking it down bluffing, or down a full buy-in on our first hand. I'm sweating, my heart's beating, it's back on my opponent. Is he going to make the fold? Is he going to make that hero call? He decides to fold. Let's go. We take it down. He says he should have jammed pre-flop, and I say, what does that mean? What did you have? He said he had ace queen. Wow, wish he jammed pre-flop. Decided to float me on the flop, obviously couldn't call on the turn. Okay, I guess I love ace king again. Let's go, we take down a massive one. Oof, that was stressful. Don't want to play ace king at all for a while. Oh my goodness. Ace king suited. This is the next hand that we play. We are under the gun +1, decide to open it up to $35, and now middle position 3 bets to 120. All right. Folds back to us. We are getting ourselves into some spots today. I'm going to be putting in that juicy 4-bet. I make it $450. Let me know what you think about the sizing. It's back on him, and he snap folds 3-4 suited. We run out the flop. He would have flopped 2 pair. Turn gives us a heart draw, and river the heart. Oh my goodness. We would have gotten into a massive flop had I just flat called, or had he decided to flat call this massive 4-bet. Ace King treating us right so far, up about $1,000 without much resistance. Don't mind if I do. We go super cold, missing some pocket pairs, even getting in the mix with queen deuce suited. And then, you guys ever get a feeling that this hand is going to be the hand? That's how I feel when I look down at queen 5 of diamonds, and we do a little bit more than get in the mix here. There was a limp by middle position. I decided to open it up to 40. The small blind 3-bet to 120. The limper calls the 120. And I decide to get into the mix on the button here. And we flop pretty good for the queen 5 of diamonds. It comes 6, 7 of diamonds, and the deuce of spades. When you get in the mix with queen 5 of diamonds, you can only hope to flop a flush draw. The small blind continues here with a c-bet of $90. The player that limped decides to think about it and also make the call, so pretty weird spot here. I definitely want to put some money in the pot. It's going to look very, very strong, and you gotta balance out your sets, your 2 pairs, with some bluffs. What better hand to bluff than with a flush draw? So I decide to make it $410. Small blind is a good thinking player, gives it a good thought, painfully decides to fold, middle position folds, and I show the queen 5 of diamonds, and the small blind's like, oh, it felt like you had a flush draw. They run out the flop, and we would have turned the flush. So once again, like the ace-king hand, I guess I should have just flatted. Maybe would have made some more money, but hey, take it down. Can't complain. Off to a really good start to the session. And now we get to, I guess, maybe one of the hands of the vlogs. Maybe, is that a rule? Could we have multiple hands of the vlogs? I guess we can. It's my vlog, huh? So we look down at pocket queens in the big blind. There's an early position open to 50, a 3-bet right away by middle position to 175. And when it's back on me, I have a pretty interesting spot. Do I want to come in for one of my like 3rd, 4th bets of the night? Definitely could look a little bit bluffy and like I don't actually have a strong hand because, I mean, I rarely ever get to 4-bet and I've done it like twice already. So maybe these guys will think I'm just full of shit. I haven't played with most of them yet since our game is usually on Tuesday, got moved to Wednesday, so mixed with a different crowd today. Pretty awesome, loved all these guys, had a super, super fun time. I eventually do decide to 4-bet to $425. He thinks about it for quite some time. Don't mind if he jams. I mean, it's going to be pretty gross, but just not folding queens here. But after quite some time, he does decide to put in the call. So we're going heads up, hoping to see no ace, no king, and we see not one, but both of them. Ace, king, 8 rainbow. Ugh, so just like ace, king earlier, definitely a really weird spot. Should we c-bet? Should we check? I usually like to err on the side of a c-bet, so that's what I decided to do. $240 is what I choose. No matter what hand I've got, no matter what the board is, I usually decide to go with a lower c-bet, a smaller c-bet. Definitely could be flawed, but just how I play, just part of my strategy. And my opponent decides to put in the call. Not the best, but definitely could still be calling one here with jacks, 10s, maybe he's got 9s. Definitely would suck if he had 8s, I'll tell you that much. But headed to the turn, which is the 9 of hearts. Brings in a heart flush draw, and just like I was kind of confused on the flop, pretty confused here. And I decided that I would obviously betting with all my strong aces, obviously betting with kings, obviously betting with pocket aces. If I picked up a massive combo draw here with something like queen 10 of hearts, queen jack of hearts, I would keep betting. So that's what I decided to do. $475. I don't go big, I keep it on the smaller side. And my opponent thinks about this for a really long time, like 2.5 minutes of real time, which, as I always say, doesn't seem like a long time, but in poker, that is an absolute eternity. And I'm not really sure what I want from my opponent because this long tank could be him debating if he wants to jam or if he just wants to flat call with a really, really strong hand, or it could be him having pocket jacks, pocket 10s, debating on a fold. And after the longest time, my opponent does come to a decision, and that decision is fold, which I don't really mind. And we are 4-4-4, taking down every single pot, up nearly $2,000. And you guys might be confused at the title of the video, but just fasten your seatbelts because things are about to get crazy. Next, we look down at queen 10 of hearts in the small blind. There is a open to $25, a 3-bet to 85. I decided to cold call the 3-bet. Like I say, always not something you should do, but just wanted to get in the mix with this hand. The initial raiser folds, and we're just going heads up to a board in which we flop an open ender with a diamond draw out there. I check it over to him, and he decides to bet out for $150. You don't really see people using full pot size bets on the flop, but you know, not going anywhere with our open ender. Hopefully we can turn a heart, pick up a massive combo draw, and that's exactly what we see. Wow, we've got an open ender, a heart draw, Could check raise here. Could definitely do a lot of different things, but I check it over to him, and now he bets out for $300. Seems like he's got a pretty strong hand. Maybe he's just got something like ace queen of diamonds, ace king of diamonds. I do debate raising, but I come to the eventual decision to just make the call, hoping to see something good on the river, and no, we brick everything, as well as the front door diamonds comes in. Not like that matters, we've only got queen high. So check it over to him, and he snap checks it back with ace jack. The raise on the turn probably would have worked, but you know, can't play everything perfectly. Let me know if you guys would have raised. On to the next one. All right, here's where things start to get very, very interesting in the night. We look down at the good old 5-7 suited. We're in the small blind. We see a middle position open to 40 and 2 callers before it gets back to me. I decide, you know what? Let's bump this one up in the small blind. We'll try to take it down. Be aggressive post flop. Let's go. We're playing well tonight. We're up some money. Let's make some moves. I make it $150, which is definitely way too small. I think I need to make this somewhere in the range of like 210, 225, maybe even like 250, 300. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that one down below. But the initial raiser folds, so I'm like, okay, cool. Next player folds, so I'm like, oh, awesome. We're getting it through. We're going to pick up almost $200 uncontested until the last flatter decides to back 4-bet to $400. What? I mean, there is no way that this is a good hand, right? If he had something like aces, kings, maybe even like king queen suited, he would raise because there's only like 2 players after him. The likelihood of the button, the small blind, or the big blind putting in a 3-bet to allow him to 4-bet is like so slim. It's just most likely going to go either button call, I call, big blind call. Maybe we'll all call, and if he's got a really good hand that's worth 4-betting, that's a disaster to go 5, 6, 7 ways with. So I'm just really confused. It just seems like he's trying to remake a play on me making a play, you know, kind of knowing that I'm in a perfect spot to raise and make a play. I don't know, whatever. So I decide to actually put in the call here. I'm figuring, A, if he does have a really good hand, we could suck out on him, or B, if he doesn't have a good hand and we flop something nice, we can get him to bluff off into us. Who knows? This is what I do. I make the call, so $800 in the middle, going to the flop, 5-7 suited, and oh my goodness, pretty good flop for 5-7 suited, as well as now I'm thinking in my mind, there's not really too many strong hands he could have here. I'm pretty much, like I said, discrediting him from having aces, kings, queens. He could have pocket jacks, but again, why wouldn't he just 3-bet right away instead of just flatting? I don't know. Maybe I just set this one up for him, you know, give him an alley-oop. He's just slamming it down on me. Pause. But anyways, I check it over to him, and he c-bets here for $300. I take a long think about this one. Obviously, could just make the call, try to improve to our straight, and get paid, but I decide, like I said, doesn't seem like there's any possible way he could have a super strong hand here. I can have all the sets. I can have all the 2 pairs. He's got about $1,100 behind. I think I can get him to fold if I jam. So that's what I do. I decide to go all in, and my opponent snaps me off faster than I can even think about what the fuck I just did. And he says, you want to go once or twice? I say, I guess twice. We run the first board out. Brick. We run the second board out. Brick. And get ready for what my opponent shows. Pocket aces. Are you fucking kidding me? Who flat calls a raise after a caller and there's like, you know what? We won't get tilted. It's okay. We go from up around 1800 all the way back down to like up a little bit. So I guess still an all right session. Could be worse. He could have been a bigger punt. But let me know what you guys think down below about the play. I guess good play because you got me to spaz out with my hand. So kudos to you. And on to the next hand. I guess the theme of the night is interesting hands. We look down at Queen 7 suited. There's an early position open to 35. I make the call, middle position calls, and the button calls. So we're going 4 ways to the flop, and we flop a queen shit kicker. And the initial raiser continues betting here for $50. I am the only customer. Going heads up to the turn, pairs the board. Guess that's a pretty decent card. He now keeps betting for $75. Seems like he's just stringing us along. Ace, queen, king, queen, some like aces, kings, who knows, but not folding just yet. I make the call, and wow, the river is a queen. Okay, pretty damn good. Full house. Not really many hands beat us here, and he keeps betting here for $125. So obviously going to raise. Maybe we look tilted after just bluffing off quite a bit of money. So I just grab a stack of Pink's $100 chips and raise it up to $600. My opponent does not snap fold. He doesn't snap call. He actually thinks about this one for quite some time. I'm like, oh, all right, I hope you call. You know, maybe it'll look super bluffy. He'll pay us off. Maybe we got lucky aces, kings. He's got something like tens, jacks. And after the longest time, he folds. Ugh. All right, guess get a little bit back. Still down a bit from that bluff, but let's keep on chugging along. Next, we get in a little cheeky play here with the ace-3 of diamonds. We open it up in the hijack to $35. Folds to the button. He 3-bets to 100. Gets back to us. I put in that 4-bet solver. GTO approved. 310. My opponent snap folds before I even get the bet out. And I just want you guys to keep this in your mind. It's the same opponent. We might try to 4-bet later in the session. Might not work. We'll see. Let's head to the next hand. Now we look down at pocket sevens and the cutoff. Folds all the way to us. We open it up to 30. The button decides to 3-bet us to 85. And the big blind actually cold calls 85. Quite interesting. I put in the 85 as well. Going 3 ways to a board of 8-5 deuce. Big blind checks. I check it over to the button. And he decides to check this one back. So we're going to a turn, which is a 6, gives us an open-ended straight draw, as well as we still could possibly have the best hand here. But now the big blind just decides to lead out for $175. Could be taking advantage of the fact that we all just checked the flop. He's going to try to stab, take it down. He's a pretty aggressive player, but not going anywhere. Debated raising, but just going to take our equity. I put in the call, and now the button gives it a super long think. And he decides to call as well, so this pot is pretty interesting. Going to the river, going to need to hit a straight, it appears. But it is a jack we whiff. And now the big blind decides to cut out and bet $500. Although it seems like a bluff, if this was heads up, maybe we could hero call, but with the button in there as well, he could definitely have a strong hand. Doesn't seem like the big blind's going to be bluffing into 2 people here. So we make the fold. So we are absolutely bleeding, calling some 3-bets with some suited connectors, raising ace queen, seeing king high boards, and getting people to donk into us. We just can't make a hand. We can't hit any board. Extremely card dead, and it gets super frustrating when that happens. You got to keep your calm. We're down, I think, somewhere in the range of $1,500 to $2,000 at this point. Getting pretty frustrated, and it's definitely one of the hardest things in poker to keep your calm and keep playing the correct way when things just are not going your way, especially after we got off to a hot start. Let's see if we can win the next hand. Then we get into another interesting spot with 7-8 suited. We are in the $25 straddle. Folds all the way to the big blind, who opens it to $75. I put in that 3-bet in position here to $250. Love playing these suited connectors. He makes the call, and we're going heads up to a flop of 8 high. Beautiful. Can't ask for a better board when you 3-bet the 7-8 suited. He checks it over to me. Definitely could protect our checking range here. Have some top pairs, have some pairs in the checking range, but also want to be c-betting when we actually hit something. If we're going to be c-betting when we absolutely whiff with like ace king, ace queen, etc., etc. So I do decide to bet here for $200, little less than half the pot. He thinks for quite a long time and ends up putting in the call, looking for some sort of good turn, and that is exactly what we get in 8. Can we finally win back a lot of this money that we've been punting away? An amazing spot here as the 3-better. He shouldn't be expecting us to have too many 8s here, and he checks again here on the turn. Super interesting spot. I did debate checking back for deception, but only one way to build a pot, only one way to get all in. Gotta keep betting. I probably would with something like ace king, ace queen, thinking, oh, it's, less likely that he's got an 8. Let's keep barreling. I decide to bet for $350, hoping my opponent just thinks I'm full of crap, tries to make a move and raise me here, thinking there's no way I've got an 8. But after the longest time, he folds. The frustration continues. And that all kind of leads up into this hand with ace jack offsuit. There's a $25 straddle on. We're playing about six-handed, so it's just harder to have a good hand, harder to make good hands. I open it up to $75, get one call, and now the small blind comes in for a pretty massive 3-bet here to $375. Like I said, it's the same player who I 4-bet earlier. He snap folded. He doesn't like to get into the mix with a lot of my hands. A lot of times I'm 4-betting, he is snap folding, and that all comes down into this decision where I decide to put my nuts on the table and 4-bet ace-jack offsuit here to $975. My heart's racing. I'm sweating. I am very much hoping that this gets through. Don't want to see a call. Don't want to see a jam. The only thing I want to see is snap fold, and that's not what happens. The player to my left does snap fold, but he gets back to the small blind. He asks how many chips I have, which is, again, not a question I wanted to hear. And he decides, you know what? I am all in. And, a slight degenerative thought did race through my mind where, you know what? I'm down. Let's gamble. If I've got to rebuy, I've got to rebuy because probably got to add on some chips anyways. But think better of that and, pretty quickly snap back into the reality that a 5-bet shove is never light. We are never in anything close to decent shape. And decided to fold this, unfortunately. So now we're down somewhere in the ballpark of like 3,000, 3,500. Really not feeling great, but let's keep going and, see how things go. And before I can even decide or, ponder adding on, we get into this hand with pocket twos. There's an open in early position to 30. I make the call, and the cutoff decides to 3-bet to 110. The initial raiser makes the call. I'm in there with the ducks. Can we get lucky one time? And yes, we flop a set. Thank goodness. We have not won a pot in ages. We've just been bleeding. Maybe it's time to put a band-aid on that, get a little bit of it back. Let's see how the hand unfolds. The initial raiser checks, I check, and the 3-better bets $150. Thank goodness. Seems like it's setting up to be a pretty good one. I decide to just flat call. No need to go crazy. We don't even really have that many chips behind, so should be pretty easy to get it in later streets. The turn is a 9. I check it over to him, praying he will continue, but he checks it back. Oh, no. Not good. Going to a river, which is another 9, running 9s, gives us a full house. Hopefully the check doesn't mean he's got some sort of showdown value and he's just going to shut down a bluff. But anyways, on this river, as played, just going to check again. It's looked extremely weak. And, some of these opponents might be thinking that they could push me around a little bit. So I like to give them a little bit of rope here and there. And rope indeed is what my opponent gets. He bets $550. Like I said, I didn't add on, didn't start this hand with too much money. Might have cost us some value here, but I decided to go all in for $1,300, and my opponent snap calls. I show the pocket twos, and he shows 9-10 for the runner trips. He thought he was good. Not against the Ducks, baby. Get a much needed double up. Who knows if I had more chips, if I raised, I probably would have raised to somewhere in the range of like 1,400, 1,500. Anyways, so probably didn't mess up too much here unless I had like 2,200 and I jam and he snap calls. We would have made like 700 more, but that's just poker player talking. Something good happens and you're like, well, it could have been better. But you got to be grateful and happy for everything that happened. So on to the next hand. All right, so we decide to make the game at 10-25 for the last stretch here. Bumping it up even bigger, it's all right, got to get used to it. So we look down at 7-6 suited in the small blind. There is one limp. It gets back to me. I open it up to 75. Both the big blind and the limper make the call. So we're going 3 ways to a beautiful flop here. Flush draw, open-ended straight draw, as well as, we're just going to have all the strong aces. Can't ask for a much better board than this, honestly, for 7-6 suited. So I continue here for $150, and just the big blind makes the call. Going to be pretty easy to just barrel here and take it down. He's not going to have any strong aces. Maybe we can just hit it on the turn, but we do not. We actually turn a pair, the 6 of hearts. I decide to now check it over to him, maybe give him some rope to bet, put in a massive raise, and that's exactly what happens. He does decide to bet here for $225. Time to execute the plan. I go big. I raise to $850, and my opponent pretty quickly folds, take down another nice one here. Can't complain, in the right direction. Then we get into a really interesting hand with Jack 9 suited here. There's a $50 straddle on. The next player calls 50. I decide to raise this one up out of the big blind to $200. The straddle folds, but the limper does decide to make the call, so we're going heads up to a pretty massive pot already. Not relative to the stakes, but just the fact that there's $500 in there already. We flop a jack, not really loving the king out there. I decide to actually check this one. It's nice to check some pairs as well and not just, c-bet everything. And he decides to check it back. On the 3 of clubs turn, I decide, maybe I can get some value. Maybe he's got some draws that, we can get some money from. So I decide to bet out for $150 and he just makes the call. So it's looking up. Doesn't really seem like he's got too strong of a hand. The river's a 6 and I decide now to bet $310. And when my opponent hops pretty deep into the tank, I'm thinking my jack is good. He might pay it off with, who knows? I mean, not really much worse he's going to pay off besides a king or a jack, but we are shorthanded. Definitely could be looking me up super, super light here. And after a long think, he does flick in the call. I say I've got a jack pretty confidently, and he shows king queen. All right, not really sure what the long tank was there, but we almost got him to fold king queen when we were going for value. That would have been pretty interesting, but let's head to probably the actual hand of the vlog. All right, as I said, hand of the vlog. Let's dive right into it. Still 1025. There's an early position open to 75. We 3-bet it. Good old GTO play to 250. And he makes the call. Start the recording a little bit late. Just not a good board at all for us. We flop bottom pair. I mean, range-wise, this definitely should be a better board for us. But still, you don't have to c-bet every single time. So I check after he checks. And boom, we turn 2-pair out of nowhere. Hopefully, he's got something like ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen that he didn't 4-bet. Just flat called, and we can get a lot of money here. He checks it over to me. I decide to bet $210. He thinks for just a little bit of time and flicks in the call. Loving the situation here. Hopefully it's a brick on the river. I can go big. Maybe I could block bet, get him to raise. Who knows? Let's head to the river. The river isn't amazing. It's a 10. He definitely could have queen jack, maybe something like queen jack of clubs. I was hoping he had ace 10. Now I'm not hoping he has ace 10. Could maybe have pocket 10s himself, so he checks it to me. Definitely have to go for some value. I did debate checking it back here because I'm not sure what worse hand is going to call, but I like to go for some thin value. This is also the same opponent from a couple vlogs ago who called me down with bottom pair, so, when your opponents like to call light, gotta go for some thin value. I bet $415 and get instantly punished. My opponent does not fold. He does not call. He raises to $1,300. What? I mean, does he have queen jack of clubs? Does he have ace 10? Does he have pocket 10s? Is he just trying to make a move? This is absolutely disgusting. I thought about this for a really long time, so long that my phone ran out of storage. Yeah, that shows how gross of a spot this is. And after the longest time, I think, you know what, sometimes you just got to put in the call. You can't let your opponents just, push you around. If I, put this in the vlog and show that, I fold 2-pair here, probably going to get exploited pretty easily. So I decide to put in the call, $1,300, massive pot, and my opponent shows ace 10. Ugh, that is disgusting. We were making a little bit of a comeback, and this just kicked us all the way down. We're down over $4,000, like $4,500 at this point. Absolutely disgusting. Ugh. Let me know if you guys would have folded. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this insane session. After it was all done and through, we were down $5,500. But what happened? After the session was over at like 4:30 in the morning, we did flips, PLO flips, and all different flips. I made it all back and wound up profiting $1,200 on the day. I have no words for that. So if you guys liked this session, please drop a like, a comment on the video. Like I said, support Ignition for supporting your boy. Check out all my content across social media, and on their social media, you'll see tons of me all over there. If you guys aren't sick of me enough from these vlogs, but as always, hope you guys have a great week. Peace out, and I'll catch you next time.